Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Bite Size Branding live show. As always, when you're putting together a live show, exciting things happen. So we've had a couple of little technical things back and forth, but I think we're now up and online. I don't know if there's something crackling underneath your phone there, Scott, or maybe it's the volume. You can hear myself maybe talking. I don't know.
Yes,
Yeah, no, I can hear you loud and clear, but there was a bit of crackling there for a while.
Yeah, okay. Okay, well, it looks like we're going to be okay. It looks like everybody, we're going to be okay. No, they're getting crackling. We are getting some crackling. What is that?
I'm not sure what's causing the crackling.
Yeah. I don't know if, Scotty, do you have a set of headphones maybe?
Yeah, no, I don't. Let me just see what happens if I put the earpiece in, if that makes a difference.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Appreciate it. See, everybody, this is how you know it's truly live. We can't have planned this.
No.
Let me just try something.
Yeah,
This is what live is all about.
Yep, that's right.
Well,
In the meantime, while Scott preps himself, Grant, do you want to introduce the format of the show?
Here we go. That's much better. Much better.
Yeah,
there
way better.
Way
Thanks,
better.
mate.
Excellent. All right, Scott. Well, while you're getting set up there, let me get the bit of the format up and running. So, hi everyone, and welcome to the show of Bite Size Branding. We're live, as you can see. So my name is Grant Tom, and I'm known as the head fire starter of the marketing and advertising industry. And what that means is that customers come to me with the view to get their ideas generated and create value for their customers, and make sure that somewhere along the lines their advertising campaign has a penetration with a view to get engagement and therefore get a reputation built for these businesses. So welcome to the show. And what the show is all about is that we bring on professionals with the view to come and unbundle their secrets, their hooks and hacks as to what they do and their expertise. And normally we talk for 5 minutes or less, and Bernard and I butt in with the view to unbundle their secrets. But when we have a guest, we add 2 extra minutes just to allow for a little bit more argy-bargy and get the very best content out of our guests. So welcome to the show, Scott, and we look forward to asking you some key questions and at the same time getting the secrets and the hacks from your number of years of experience as being an experienced copywriter.
Yeah. Thanks, Grant. Thanks, Bernard. Very much appreciated.
Yeah, and look, thank you very much for jumping into the show last minute. We were on the hunt for an awesome guest, and Scott has been trafficked around my network quite a bit. And then Grant gives me a call. He says, "Do you know Scott Bayswater?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man. He keeps coming up. Like, he knows. Like, I've heard of him. He's recently been introduced to me. We're talking next week. Yeah, let's get him on the show. Let's make the magic happen." So it's phenomenal to have you on the show. I love that we finally this is actually the first time we've officially connected in a live and an intimidating platform. No.
Spontaneous. Don't forget spontaneous.
Yeah, spontaneous. I was going to steal your word for a second there, Grant. I'll leave it to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's still that thunder?
No. So first off, now that we're all online and we're all happy, Scott, welcome to the show. Thank you very much for joining us. And as always, Grant, thank you very much for co-hosting the show with me. When Grant called me the other day and he said, "Bernard, I got to talk to you about the show," I thought, oh God, here it is. The first time Grant's going to say, "Mate, I can't make it to the show." And then he's like, "Let's get Scott on the show." And I'm like, "Oh, well, that's okay. We can talk about that. That I will allow." Scott, I'm going to kick it to you now that Grant's told everyone how the show is going to run. Tell everyone a little bit about what you do and in the great wide world of copy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, what I do essentially is I'm a direct response copywriter who basically, turns words into money, whether that be via Facebook ads, whether that be via Google ads, whether that be via old school, things like like traditional advertising or direct mail. That's essentially what I do. So I've been doing it for over 2 decades now, and working with some of the biggest names both in Australia and and overseas. So yeah.
Very cool. Very, very cool. And it is amazing how much language impacts people along the journey of making a decision of whether or not they're going to engage with somebody or not. And I think a lot of the time, much like graphic design, it's often underrated to the impact it has on the buying process. So I'm very excited to start to really uncover this a little bit more. And I actually have your website up here because I got a couple other questions that I want to fire at you. But if you're ready, we're going to get started. I'll hit the timer. But the first question we're going to do is, I asked you if you were ready. I didn't even give you a chance to say yes. That's how confident I am.
Yeah. Always ready. Always ready.
Always ready. That's right. So I was having a chat with Grant, and we were kind of looking at the industry and the space, and there are a lot of different aspects of putting together content. There is a journey that people get led through from the heading to how the content is introduced, or the intro piece, and then what ends up hooking them to make that conversion. And I was wondering if you could unbundle that process a little bit on how do you get somebody to engage in the beginning, to follow through the piece, and then take action as they come through a content piece.
Yeah. No, absolutely, and I think that the important thing to keep in mind here is that it all starts much like with branding, right? It all starts with the research. So I've been doing recently a lot of copy for builders, for instance. And before you build a house, you got to do the design. You got to work out what you want. You got to do all these steps, right? You don't just wake up tomorrow and start slapping bricks on dirt and hoping for the best. So the research phase should take about, in a campaign, about 40% of the energy, right? So what you're looking for there, you're looking for the fears, the pains, the desires, the beliefs, the objections, who the target market is. All of these sort of aspects you're deep diving, because it's like if you want to create a skyscraper, then you've got to dig deep. Yeah, you got to dig deep, and that's what that research is doing. You're finding out all about, what's their process. How do we take a customer from being the sad face to the smiley face? What are all the steps involved in actually doing that? So you're doing this sort of thing before you even and then you're mapping out a strategy. So that strategy, whether that strategy is for a website, or whether it's for, let's say, a marketing funnel, you're basically mapping out that strategy to do that. And then in my case, where I work with clients, I will also interview the client to get everything. So I'll do all that initial research. Then I'll go through and interview the client. So I actually get inside of the client's head, if you like, and get their voice, their words on paper, which is quite easily these days with modern technology, where you can put it through things like Otter, have the transcription done, so that now I'm working with their words rather than my words, and their copy is sounding like them rather than a copywriter, right? So obviously you need to polish their words quite a bit, but it's still coming out as authentic to them. And then from there, once you've done that, then you've done the research. Now it's time to write, right? So the writing is actually the easiest part of the job. So when people say copywriting, it's not really. It's the writing is only like a tiny part of the job in essence, and it's probably the easiest part of the job, right? It's probably the most mindless part of the job. The research is where the real work is, and then at the end of the day, the editing is where the other part of the job is like. So when I write, it's just like, how do I get as many words on paper as possible? And I will be setting a timeline and going, okay, in this hour, I want to get 1,000 words down, bang. Yeah, and you're just like aiming to do that because you've done the pre-work, you know the structure that you're going to write in, and then you write, and then you circle back, and where some of the hardest work is and where the real mastery is the editing. It's like Michelangelo, right? You're chipping away. You're trying to get that, that sculpture so it just pops and shines and all of that sort of thing. And when training writers, that's probably the number one area where people fall down. And what I say is the number one area of mastery is how, and that's where the hooks and the headlines come in, because you always write the headlines last, not first. So the headlines are like, they're done. Yeah, they're definitely not done first, because you've got to get all of the ideas to percolate in your mind, right? You know, to percolate. And then the right ideas sort of pop up from there. And I write headline. I've got one client I just write headlines for them. They've got a email database of like 2 million or something. So they can justify having actually a few writers who actually put together headlines for them. And what I find there when I'm writing headlines, a very systemic process, because you're going through all the copy, and you're pulling out parts of copy, and then you're putting them almost into, I use a tool called Scrivener. So you're putting them into like little boxes, and then you're going through the boxes afterwards, and you're like pulling it out. And the headline might be 3/4 of the way into the copy, right? So the headline and the hook is like buried deep. And often when you critique a piece of copy and change it, it's like this really good part, 90% of people aren't seeing. But let's see what happens if we bring this to the top rather than having it buried, deep into the copy, sort of thing. So, and you could literally give, like, if you put your creative juices on, you could literally give 10, 20, 30 different hooks to a particular piece of copy. Do you know what I mean? You can come at it from so many different angles. Like if you look at someone like Perry Marshall, who I was in his mastermind years ago over in the US, but he created a thing called the Swiss Army knife sort of thing. And it was like coming up with hooks based on emotions, things you hate, things you love, and then it'd be like a happy emotion. Like he had all of these different things where you can actually pull from to get ideas for headlines. And really, it's so limitless, right? There was this mathematics book I read once, and it really put perception on the limitless of ideas, because he said if you take 52 cards and you shuffle them and then you pull them out, he says odds are you will come up with a unique shuffle that nobody has ever done before. That's with 52 cards, right? So when it comes to copy, like, how many different ways can I spin this? There's probably a million ways I can actually spin this piece of copy, right, to come up with a different hook, a different angle, something which really pops. So the creativity is endless.
So that's incredible, Scott. One of the things I think about is when you talk about creating that recipe with a view, that ongoing working with a client, do you sort of just tweak that recipe again, or how do you revisit that?
Yeah, I mean, each time you work with a new client, the process is generally similar in terms of you're looking for you're going through, the process is similar, but it's a little bit like building a house, right? If you're a custom home builder, for example, every home you build is different, but the process you go through is similar, sort of thing. So you're still going through that research phase. Then you're going through and you're doing the build phase, and then you're tidying things up at the end. Process doesn't change, but the end result is always different.
With that analogy, it's like, you still use bricks to build the walls, but it doesn't mean that the house will be the same shape.
Exactly. And it's like, and with words, it's so much more different every time, right? Because every brick is a word, but every word is different and can be structured in like so many different ways, sort of thing. So so, and that's really it's really the big thing I would want to get across is that it doesn't matter what your campaign is, it can be flipped in a completely different direction with if you're creative with it. Do you know what I mean? It can just be like you can take something, let's say you're writing for property investment education, you could spin it and lead with a testimonial. Do you know what I mean? This person got this result. You could lead with like if we look at the moment, interest rates are going up. What does that mean? Do you know what I mean? So you've got these you've got these sort of leads in terms of, and the question to be really asking is, what's the conversation going on in the customer's mind? And it's an old Robert Collier quote. It's like, enter the conversation going on in the customer's mind. And that's why the research phase is just so critical, because you can put amazing words together, right? But if I'm talking about knee pain and you've got back pain, it's not going to hit the mark, right? You're going to be like, well, dude, your words are beautiful, but I got back pain. I don't have knee pain, or vice versa. So it's like that's really the number one, and that's really, I think, where most people fall short. If you're writing for your own business, the advantage is you still need to do the research, because if you survey your clients, you will discover stuff. Even though you think you know your clients, you will discover stuff you actually don't know. Do you know what I mean? Like it's amazing what you'll discover, but you probably need to do less research than someone who's a consultant who's coming in cold to your industry, just because you're living and breathing it 24/7 sort of thing. So
But then also you get the adverse effect where people are too buried in their business to see what's
what the quality
of I think the one takeaway, and then we'll move on to the next question, unless there's something important you wanted to add in there, Grant. But the one thing that stood out for me is writing the heading after writing the article. In our business, we go through and we come up with a bunch of ideas and we write down the title where we were titled it, and then write the article. And not very often do we change the title after doing that. But we've never actually really done it the other way around, where we're like, well, this is the topic, write the article, and then cherry pick those bits to become the heading.
No, you figured out what you're doing wrong. You got to mix it up now, Bernard.
Yeah, that's it. It's throwing a spanner in the works, man. Works.
Well, it's a whole thing, because you need a theme, right? So when you're doing it, you're like if I was writing a long campaign or a long, let's say a long sales letter, I would work out, I'm going to, I actually mind map it, and I go, I'll do the research, then I go, I'm going to talk about that first, that second, that third, that fourth, that fifth, etc. And here's the overall theme. But once you've written it, then it's like editing it. And then the last thing really is, how do we make the headline, how do we make this headline and the lead just go pop, to where it's just like, bang, it's irresistible. And obviously it depends, right? Like if you're writing an email and 300 people are going to see it, you're not going to invest 3 hours creating a subject line for it. You've got to go, what's the, do you know what I mean? You got to go to how important is this piece of copy, and then therefore how much time am I going to put into it, sort of thing. So but the same concept applies. It still makes sense to do a subject line after you've actually written the email.
That's it. Yeah, excellent.
I'm going to see if I can unlock my phone without having to spin it around. Grant, are you good for us to jump into the next question?
We're going to jump into that. I think Scott has got such good gold nuggets here that I don't think we should hold him back. I think we've got to get on to the next question.
That going. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Cool. So next question. I was having a little sticky beak on your website, and I saw a great article about information overload. And I think these days it's it's everything. It's not just information, it's event overload. It's internet overload. It's content overload. There's just so much being thrown at you all the damn time. And what kind of piqued my interest was, what are your suggestions, or what have you been recommending people do with their content, with their copy, in order to break through the noise that's around them all the time? I'm gonna hit that timer. Is that a good question? Is that a good?
No, that's good. That's good.
There we go. Excellent. Go.
Yeah. So I think the big thing with content overload is preciseness, right? So let's say if we look at the back pain, knee pain example before, if I'm suffering from excruciating back pain, and I go on the internet, I will read, if the content's good and it's specific to my needs, I will read for 20 hours on that particular topic, right? I will read. I get quite obsessive, right? So when I go through particular things in my life and I want to learn something, I remember at one stage I read 20 books on a subject, right? Because I was just like, I wanted to understand it. So it's like the whole thing that people won't read long copy is nonsense. They will read it and they will accumulate it. And yes, the formats may have changed, but at the end of the day, people go, oh, no one reads long copy anymore. But what they do is they go on Facebook and then they download a report and then they read like 50 emails from you over the next year. Or they book into a webinar and they sit there and the webinar becomes a long copy sales letter and they're on the webinar for 60 to 90 minutes. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's that whole concept of people won't take in information. If it matters to them, they will consume like crazy if it's really important to them. But the whole key is relevance, right? It's relevant. Yeah. So I was speaking to someone today and they're like, they had sort of a website, but I looked at the headline, I looked at all this sort of thing, and it was very, it looked like what their competitors would have. There was no uniqueness to the copy. And then I said to them, well, what are the three biggest problems that people face in your, when they talk to you? What are they? And she gave me like three different things. And I'm like, well, that's what you want to really lead with. You have your website, and then you stamp your authority, you address their problems, all that sort of thing, but all above the fold. And then you give them like three options: go here for this problem, go there for that problem, and go there for that problem. And that's then exactly the relevancy.
How your website's laid out. It says, "How can Scott help you? I want more leads. I have an email list and want to monetize it. I want my ads to work better." Boom, there it is.
Yes. Yeah. And then they go down that rabbit trail, right? So then your emails can also go to those specific pages. So you can write emails about those three subjects and break them up, and then they go to those specific sales pages. So that's very, very powerful. The other thing that can be really done, like if you look at, I know I'm friends with Nick Thackerell he runs a company called LeadsHook. And he's having incredible success because what they do is they'll do, someone will subscribe through a what does he call them? He calls them decision trees. So they'll be asking, he might have, in some cases, he's asking like dozens of questions, right? So rather than coming in and knowing that someone has an email address and a pulse, which is usually what they know because they filled out the form, right? So they must have a pulse. So what he's got is he might have 20 pieces of data, right? And then we know that let's say if you're in the weight loss industry and we know that like you suffer from, I don't know, flaky elbows or something. Do you know what I mean? And you can write an email to them and say, if you suffer from flaky elbows, take a look at this, and you'll get a very high click-through rate because you know that person has a very specific problem, as versus if you're a man who needs to lose weight, or if you're a woman who needs to lose weight, which is quite it's quite vague sort of thing. So that more specificity overcomes that content problem, because if we've got a problem, you just got to think like if your child had a really bad health problem and an unusual health problem right now, how many books would you read to try and help them? Do you know what I mean? It's unstoppable. So it's not necessarily content overload. It's a relevant content overload. Because if it's not relevant and I can read the same thing on 20 other websites, and it's a supply and demand thing. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's not unique. It's not relevant. It's like, what do I need to read that for? So I think that's really the key distinction there.
But Scott, I needed to unbundle something for me. This thing of long copy versus short copy. I'm a kind of guy that to get to the point, I haven't got a lot of time to read, but a lot of people think a long copy really gives a lot of validation. What's your passion? What's your recipe? What do you feel about long copy versus short copy?
Yeah, I think it depends on what you want to achieve, right? Like I'm a fan of long copy and the whole David Ogilvy sort of thing, which it's not, I forget if he said this, but I think he said something like it's not too long, it's just too boring or something like that. So it's like, but there is cases where short copy, right? So if you want them to download a free report, then all you need to tell them is, hey, get this free report and it's going to solve this problem, and they'll download it. You don't need a 25-page sales letter to do it. But if I've got a product and I want to sell it for $3,000, then it makes sense to then go, and I want to do it, let's say, without a sales letter, or I want to prep it so that when a salesperson gets on the call, they've got a high conversion rate, then it makes sense to send someone to a webinar, or to send them multiple emails. So long copy is also consumed over time in many businesses. So there's a book called They Ask, You Answer, which was written by I think Marcus Sheridan, I think it was. And what he found was that when he was selling swimming pools, and the average closing rate in that industry was 10%. But if they'd absorbed 30 or more pieces of content before they went to a sales meeting, the conversion rate jumped up to 80%. So 80. Wow. So all of a sudden the salespeople are closing at 8 times the rate, right? So and I found this in my own business. Like if I get someone who contacts me and they've been they've been on my list for like several years, and they've been consuming your emails, and then they contact you, it's almost like you don't even need to be any good at selling. You don't need to be good at selling. Yeah.
I actually had one more question, but I'm going to keep it to myself. That's what's going to happen. I'm going to say, you want to know the answer to the question that never got asked? Call Scott. Boom. Yeah. That's the only way you'll ever find it out. I actually have to remember it even.
You got to remember it. That's the problem.
Escaping me. That's why. What was the question now?
Oh, man.
It was something in regards to, wait, hold on a second. It's coming to me, guys. It's coming to me. It was about copy. Ingenious. Short copy versus long copy. Boring copy, not boring copy. Damn it, it's escaped me. How is this even possible? I think this is the first time on this show. I don't remember what I'm going to say. Your question.
Unbelievable.
It's ridiculous. I had one job, guys. One job.
It's a question.
Your other questions were pretty good, so it makes up for it.
Yeah, I'll make up for it. Yeah, that one question, not important. Don't worry about it.
I'll just add, like when you're writing headlines as well, that the one thing that you really want to keep in mind for the headline is, the whole saying, curiosity killed the cat, right? Yeah. So the big thing with headlines is curiosity. You want to make, it has to tease, because like if I say, for example, the best, discover, like a really simple example, right? Discover the best way to lose weight. And you're like, oh, you want to read the next line, right? But if I say eating less food is the best way to lose weight, there's absolutely no reason to read that. Got it. Yeah. Cool. It's like, I got it, and I need anything else.
I'm going to roll this straight into our next question / the question I was going to ask anyway, and just make it the whole next bit, right? If I can recall my damn question. Why does it keep escaping me? Jesus Christ, Grant.
Oh, for goodness sakes.
I'm fired off this show. No, this is actually, my question was, here it is, guys. Are we ready? There were two things that you mentioned. Number one, keeping it a little bit ominous to grab people's attention. But the other thing you mentioned as well was being really targeted. So you said something like, if you're trying to target the fitness industry and a lot of your clients have flaky skin on their elbows, then do something targeted at flaky skin on the elbows. Now, what we often see when we hit the market is that people then get worried that they're going to miss everybody else. And then all of a sudden they're like, well, if I'm only targeting the flaky elbow people, what happens with everyone else? And what happens when that email hits their email, their inbox, and they're going to see this thing that's completely irrelevant to them? I just thought it would be cool to take a deeper dive on your thoughts around keeping it vague, keeping it targeted, and that perception that doing that affects the impact of what they're creating. Are we ready? You see, I told you it was a good question. So good, I gave it 7 minutes. How's that?
Yeah, no, That's awesome. That's awesome. And after this too, I'll tell you about I talked about curiosity before. After this,
Yeah.
I'll tell you there's a 4-letter word which is probably the best or most common word I use in my headlines. So
It's
I'll
a
come to
family
that.
show. It's a family show. Okay. I got some 4-letter
No,
words
it's
that
not.
aren't allowed to be said.
No,
on
it's
this
not.
one.
We want that word. We want that word.
Cool. Let's
So-
unpack that a
so-
little bit. Let's talk
Yeah,
about
yeah,
the
so-
titling first, and then we'll talk about the 4-letter word.
We'll come to that at the end. So the whole thing with niching, right? I was actually chatting with Nick Thackerell. He comes up again, but recently, and he said something which was quite amazing. He said niching is more of a tactic than a strategy in terms of the way he looks at it. Because, for example, like when COVID first hit, right, I was dealing with a lot of online personal trainers. I was in this little pocket and I was working with them. I don't really work with them anymore because they were booming at that time, right? They were like killing it in those early stages of COVID. So if I, let's say, said I'm a copywriter just for online personal trainers, all of a sudden I'm following the trend of the industry. And the same with let's say with real estate or mortgage brokers, and I'm not saying, like, I know people who've niched in those areas and they do extremely well, right? So I think niching, but the danger of niching in one area as well to keep in mind is that if you niche in one area, you go with the ebbs and flows of the industry.
Yeah.
And I know, for example, with the mortgage industry, like I know I've got friends in that industry, and it's like they're just like killing it because the interest rates drop, or then it's like businesses stopped, bang, it just stops, and it's like where'd all the business go? So that's the only danger in niching.
We've had that with construction, so we do a lot of work with construction. All of a sudden, with the cost of materials going up and all the rain, stopped them from being able to break ground on projects. All of a sudden, a bunch of our clients just went, no, we're going to stop doing our thing, And we're like, oh, wow, this thing that was like a golden little train has just like come to a screeching halt.
Yeah. So I think that's like the danger of niching. Obviously, the benefits are, you can streamline your business and you can go, hey, you just do, you can sort of almost cookie cutter it and make it more scalable. So it's like that's one of the benefits, and you get known within the industry. So it's like it's like, which other construction companies have you worked with? Well, we've worked with, all the biggest construction companies. Like, you win their instant trust, right? But I think like anything, it's not black and white. Do you know what I mean? It's not like this is the best way, this is the worst way. It's like it's all contextual as such. But I think the way you can niche is like, it's like building, right? So we might have, if I'm doing a builder's website, they'll come to the website and then we'll say, do you need a knockdown rebuild? Do you need a luxury home? Do you need a custom home? Do you know what I mean? Like, and then they go down those individual rabbit trails within the one business sort of thing. And I think let's say as a consultant, you could like potentially niche in like a handful of different areas. So you get known in that area, but you don't necessarily get slammed by all the the waves that then hit that industry sort of thing. So so I'm all for niching, but I think there's pluses and there's minuses of going down that road, and it's just like measuring it's like the strength, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, right? They're all encompassed in that in that niching sort of part. But the other thing you can do, like let's say let's say as a copywriter, right? I could get one set of ads that's working, and then I could niche it and go, okay, I'm going to tweak this for the building industry. I'm going to tweak this for accountants. I'm going to tweak this for mechanics. I'm going to like whichever niches I want to go into, and then I can go broad, or I could customize my offering for, let's say, 20 different niches and see which one actually responds the best, and then go, okay, I'm going to put more attention into this niche than the other niche. Which if you just pick one out of the blue, right, it's like it's like you got bait, right? And you've got all these different fish. You got garfish, brim, all of these sort of different, shark, whatever. You put the bait in 2 of them, they sniff it, and they're not really interested. You put the same bait in the 3rd one, and they just go crazy for it. Yeah. Right? Well, that maybe that's my niche, right? Rather than just out of the blue going, okay, I'm going to sell to air conditioning suppliers. I'm going to sell copywriting to air conditioning suppliers. And then maybe they just don't respect the craft, or they got no interest, or it's not. Do you know what I mean? So it's like this. I don't think the whole niching thing is black and white. Cookie
Which is
cutter
why it's not
type
strategic.
Of thing.
It's tactical. That makes sense. Yeah, it's like it's a set of tactics you can play on. But the overall strategy should be, we're mastering these channels. This is the offering that we're producing, et cetera, et cetera. And then how you then niche it is the tactic. That's cool. Okay, so before the time runs out, what's the 4-letter word? Come on, let's make magic happen.
The 4-letter word. And the reason I wait until the reason I wait with a 4-letter word is because it demonstrates exactly what the 4-letter word is about, right? So this word is, like I discovered it because I was writing all these headlines and split testing these headlines for this client who's got a list of 2 million plus. And I'm like, that word's coming up enough, and then up a lot. And so obviously I kept using it. And then I noticed that BuzzSumo, they also had that word in when they did all their AI and found out the most popular word. And the word is this.
Yeah.
This. And the reason it's so powerful, right, is I can say, eating less food is the best way to lose weight. Or I can say, this is the best way to lose weight.
This.
Yeah.
This.
So you go.
No question.
Yes. Exactly.
I get it, because it's like it's just very credible. Like, you're not, there's nothing vague about it. You're literally saying like this is it. This is the master's article. If you want the cream of the crop, this is it.
That's right.
It's the ultimate curiosity word. It's the ultimate curiosity word. It's not hypey. It's not anything. It's just like very, very, makes you curious.
I think I've noticed that now that you're saying it. Now I feel like, what's that really spammy website that always sends articles to people that's really very good at fake news? What is that one called?
CNN?
Oh my God. I knew somebody was going to say something. I left that way too open for anyone to get stuck. Oh, man. Damn. What's that?
I think the 4-letter word, Bernard, that you had in mind was a different 4-letter word.
Definitely gets attention. What is that site? I now want to pull it up because I want to read the articles and see how many of them have this in the title. Man, I'm gonna check it out. I'm gonna see how many news sites kind of carry that mantra, that use case. That's so interesting, though. I wouldn't have thought of it, but then, so like, even then, if you do like a top 10 of whatever, you could say this is the top 10, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that sets it as like, this is the best article you're ever going to read about this top 10, whatever.
And it naturally leads to curiosity. So like, if you're doing it a lot, you might not use it every single time, right? But it's like another one they found in BuzzSumo, like, this will make you. Do you know what I mean? This will make you break down in tears, right? You want to read what the next word, what's coming next, or this will make you a better
it's like
branding strategist.
This will make you a millionaire.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like it gets you there, and the whole clickbait gets a bad name, but ultimately it's only because what you take them to isn't related to what you're talking about. But if it is,
it's like annoying. Clickbait does this. It's like, this actor was caught doing something very sinister, and then it has a picture of an actor, and you're like, oh, I like that actor. What was the sinister thing? And you click on it, and the article's about a completely different actor, about something completely unrelated, and you're like, who is this person they're even talking about? I don't even know who that person is. you're like, man, it's only because they had Clooney on the front page I even clicked, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's where clickbait sucks because you just they really fish you in with something. You're like, oh my God, Clooney, he's like the nicest guy ever. What did he do wrong? And then you click in and it's like, you know, I don't know. I don't have any crappy actor names, so I wouldn't be able to put one on there to make up.
It's about some shaving cream or something, you know.
Yeah.
It's
like, so this is one that I heard the other day, like on the radio, and they were like, stay tuned to hear about Taylor Swift's latest debacle with her recent event. And I'm like, debacle? Oh my God, this sounds like it's horrible, you know? And they're like, and then it comes on and they're like, you know, we just heard that Taylor Swift has sold out all her tickets within 2 days of releasing them internationally, making $14 million. And I'm like, wait a second. I don't know if the word debacle was the correct way to classify what happened. I don't think that is the correct way. The website went down. I'm like, that's not a debacle, mate. That's good fucking marketing. Like that, I wouldn't categorize that as a debacle, you know? And they hooked me. I like stayed tuned because I was like, I don't like Taylor Swift. Like, I don't really care that much for her. But I was like, what's this debacle? What happened? You know, did she fall off stage and crush somebody? No, she just sold out of tickets really quickly. I'm like, isn't that her job? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Like,
yeah.
I guess. Like,
and the problem with that sort of marketing, right, is you get a reputation for being because anyone in business, you're in it for the long game. So if you're saying stuff and then you're not delivering, it's sort of like me going, hey Grant, come over to my house and I'll give you $50. And then or saying, hey, on Saturday I'll come and help you clean your house. And then I never rock up, right?
Yeah.
And eventually you go, well, I don't trust that you'll do what you say you do. Yeah. So that's a problem with that. But if you can match it with the content, and the content's like quality, then all of a sudden it's like bang. And it's also that word. This is also a really good way a call to action on your emails, right? Like, would you like to know the secret to creating a 7-figure brand or an 8-figure brand? Then take a look at this, and then this is like the link, and they can click on it and go to you. So it can also be used in that way.
Oh man, I'm going to show my whole team the end of this episode. There's going to be some rewrites happening.
Absolutely.
So,
I apologize in advance if I've given them extra work.
Extra work, they deserve it. Guys, Scott, mate, thank you so much. There was some awesome gold nuggets in there, just thrown in. I can't wait to catch up with you next week. Grant, mate, as always, thank you very much for co-hosting the show. Everybody who's listening, thank you for tuning in. Please like, follow, share, comment. If you have ideas that you want us to unbundle, controversial things for us to talk about, and Grant wants to do his wrap up, so he's putting up his finger for me to say, hey, Grant, do you want to do your wrap of the show? You know what, Grant? You can do it after I close the show, I guess. I don't know.
No,
I'm already here.
I'm going to do it right now. The show's still on.
Do it, Grant. Take over. Whatever, mate.
Yeah, Scott, I've known you for about 2 years now, and I think you've been a fantastic guy, and you've always brought your A game. But, you know, we've had 77 shows so far, and even Noel wrote in to say what a great discussion, what great content. But at the end of the day, you know, this was what I would call as a masterclass of edutainment, because you kept us riveted. Those 3 sessions of 7 minutes just flew by. And I think we're going to nominate you as the king of edutainment, because, man, you've really kept us and really we've set the bar higher for the new guests to come onto the show. But once again, this is how you share and unlock secrets and hooks within your skill set.
Yeah. No, thanks so much for having me. It's been great, and I've never been called the king of edutainment anymore. But I'm going to go and tell my wife after this call.
We'll send you a little trophy just so you have proof. You know,
that's right.
Right there in the kitchen, you know. We'll make sure it holds knives so it has purpose, you know.
Watch the show.
Awesome. So thank you very much. As I was saying before, Grant, you know, interrupted, dude, honestly. If you guys have anything controversial that you want us to unbundle, what's happening in the industry for you that might be impacting you, or there's guests that you want us to feature on the show, send them our way and we'll get them featured. And the last thing to kind of throw in there is we actually have an exciting next show. We're having one of our clients featured on the show. I think it's the first time we actually have a client featured on the show. They're a phenomenal client, Living My Way in disability care. They're a not-for-profit in disability care, and we've been working with them for about 6-7 years now. So we're going to highlight some of the work that we've done and how they've grown and expanded their participant base and how their business has grown over the last couple of years. So I think it's going to be really fun to kind of take a direct look at how marketers make an impact in a business. So stay tuned. And thank you very much, Scott. Appreciate it, mate.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot.